I would never have thought to look at old photos of Paul McCartney's ears if I hadn't read the Memoirs of Billy Shears. But with enforced time on my hands, thanks to the restrictions of England's first pandemic lockdown in March 2020, I thought I'd take a closer look. The creators of Memoirs claim Paul's round ears are attached at the bottom, and that Billy's ears are a completely different shape that are not attached at the bottom, but rather that Billy's earlobes hang down. Locked down at home, with time on my hands, and having just joined my first Facebook PID group, with its daily Paul versus Billy photo comparisons, plus YouTube and the internet, it didn't take me too long to find images of Paul McCartney where the ears didn't match. Yet it wasn't just Paul's versus Billy's ears that didn't match. It was also various photos of Paul taken before September 1966, where his ears appeared to be different, with both V-shaped and round earlobes, all of which were unattached and hung down. None of the photos showed earlobes that were attached at the bottom, whether before or after the Billy era, so in this respect, Memoirs is incorrect. The difference between unattached earlobes and attached can be seen in this diagram and photos. It's acknowledged that Memoirs contains disinformation, and this is one point in particular, but I wouldn't reasonably expect the creators of historical fiction to be expert on ear types. Memoirs also talks about the added complication of Paul doubles when attempting to identify the person some call real Paul, or bio Paul, or James Paul McCartney, or whatever, which I know to be true in view of all the different photos I've seen of the person we were told is Paul McCartney. To further complicate matters, Memoirs tells us that before and after Paul's death, all four Beatles positions had doubles that were used far more than most fans can imagine. Oh, I can imagine, all right. And William still uses his. Now, would that be the chubby-faced Billy or the thin-faced one? Now, those who believe there has only ever been one Paul McCartney would laugh at the claim of doubles being used, despite it being common practice in showbiz for a variety of reasons. However, the topic of doubles among the more devout Paul is dead followers is definitely not a laughing matter. In fact, it can be a divisive one, which splits and divides the PID community, if you can call it that, almost into two opposing corners. In the one corner, there are those who believe there is only one unique Paul, and one replacement called Billy after September 1966, versus those who believe there was, and for that matter there still are, a varying number of doubles playing the McCartney role throughout the years from the outset. Not all Pauls are real Paul, it would seem, even when there's no so-called Billy to be seen. For example, all the top row images are considered to be real Paul by respected figures in the PID cult, although I believe I can see a fundamental biological difference in at least one of them. But nevertheless, they are all considered to be real Paul, bio Paul, or PID Paul, or whatever name you wish to call him. In contrast, Memphis Paul and Melody Maker Paul tend to divide opinion among the PIDers. Some claim that either one or both are doubles, Others claim it is real Paul. I know it can be confusing for the uninitiated, but at least the vast majority are agreed that Beatles' book Paul is not Paul, nor a Paul double, but is actually the replacement that everyone calls Billy. And there's the rub. All photos of Paul McCartney are mostly believed to be real Paul, unless he's considered to be a double. And the only time people are in agreement on who is who is when the photo was taken after September 1966. Then automatically the person has to be Billy. According to the simple, Paul is dead orthodoxy. That's even when the two Billies look very different to each other. As useful as ear-shaped photo comparisons can be, it wasn't long before the Beatles' ears were covered with their mop-top hair. So let's leave the ears and take a look at the more prominent and what should be a less complicated McCartney facial feature, before the fake moustaches arrived and the overnight beard growth. Wikipedia tells us the terms cleft chin, chin cleft, dimple chin, or chin dimple refer to a dimple on the chin. It's a Y-shaped fissure on the chin with an underlying bony peculiarity. Specifically, the chin fissure follows the fissure in the lower jawbone that resulted from the incomplete fusion of the left and right halves of the jawbone, or muscle, during the embryonal and fetal development. I know in America a cleft chin is also referred to as a bum chin, which isn't a particularly nice term, which is perhaps why some people have their cleft chin altered using cosmetic surgery and fillers. Due to its bone structural nature, a cleft chin definitely does not disappear overnight. My favourite Hollywood actors had their famous dimple chins throughout all their lives. But that doesn't appear to be the case with Paul McCartney's chin. Although I have read that the chin cleft can change in appearance with weight loss or gain, I can't see any drastic facial changes due to weight loss or gain in these images of Paul McCartney. But not enough to make a chin cleft so prominently visible and then invisible at various other times. Even the Billy era Paul had a chin cleft that came and went. Memoirs tells us that no doubles were used on any of the Beatles' album covers. So according to that theory, the real Paul McCartney had a dimpled or cleft chin. Either way, there's quite a few McCartney photos to choose from, with or without the cleft chin. So take your pick of which variety you prefer. Because Paul's chin cleft comes and goes in those 60s photos, perhaps what is needed is a more permanent telltale, or marker, to determine which Paul is the real Paul. Due to its mass working class readership, the Daily Mirror was the United Kingdom's best-selling daily tabloid newspaper. On the 13th of November, Paul McCartney appeared on the front page of the Daily Mirror, which was the first time his photo had appeared on the front page of a national newspaper. The photo demonstrated to worried fans that he was alive and well. following the recent cancellation of a Beatles concert during their autumn tour, when the previous evening's show at the Guildhall, Portsmouth was cancelled due to Paul being ill when he collapsed in the dressing room. I've been a member of over half a dozen Facebook PID groups that have a combined membership of over 2,000 people for more than 4 years. And only one person commented on that nasty scar under Paul's chin. Which just goes to show how observant people are when it comes to images of Paulie. Perhaps they were too busy mooning over him or mourning him or campaigning for justice for him. Whatever the reason, nobody except one person noticed the scar under Paul's chin, which was seen by millions on Britain's best-selling newspaper as long ago as November 1963. I suppose I can't blame people for not noticing it, because like the cleft chin, it comes and goes according to who is playing Paul. It comes and goes in the Beatles film A Hard Day's Night. For example, there's no sign of the scar in this scene with Paul, John and George lying on their backs. But a faint outline of it can be seen in one of the film's train scenes. By the way, the chin cleft comes and goes too in A Hard Day's Night, as well as the scar under Paul's chin. I can understand the makeup department disguising the scar, but not Paul's cleft chin. The scar under Paul's chin disappeared for a while, but not to worry, it came back in time for the Beatles' Bravo Blitz tour of Germany during 1966. The scar tends to make a mess of that cleft chin thing he had going on. Also, it appears you can have a Paul with or without a cleft chin, but not a cleft chin and the chin scar. The scar gives his chin a slightly wonky asymmetrical appearance, if you notice. But thankfully, the scar healed up nicely, although a trace of it can still be seen after September 1966, the alleged date of real Paul McCartney's death. So what does that tell us? Logically, it tells me that at least one early Paul made it across that September alleged death date and lived beyond it. Whether he is real Paul or not, I have no idea. But I know that any suggestion that there was more than one Paul McCartney, and one of them lived beyond the September 1966 deadline, goes against the Paul is dead orthodox theory, and makes me a black sheep heretic in the eyes of most PID disciples. Perhaps the Paul is dead conspiracy is just a distraction, and it's the doubles that hold the key to the Beatles' psyop. Thank you for watching if you've got this far. Before I go, I'd like to leave you with this thought. If there was one Paul McCartney, who according to the Paul is dead cult, died in September 1966 or thereabouts, why has the Paul on the right got exactly the same wrinkle pattern around his eyes and ear shape in later years? It's very much looking like the one and only Paul McCartney may not have died after all. Or if he did, which one was he?